First time I met Skepta, I don't know exactly what year it was, but I know exactly where it was at Music House. I was cutting dubs. Sometimes I'd just cut dubs in different places because I knew I'd bump into different people. I realised that, like, obviously Transition was like my local, and I'd only go there. But when you're in Transition, it was a bit more private. You're in there in the room in your own with Jason. You cut your dubs, and there'd be a little waiting room out the back. They kind of hear what you were playing, but not much. There was very little interaction with other customers there. You had uh, a appointment time, whereas at Music House it was no appointments. You turn up and wait your turn, like a queuing system. So you could be in the waiting room there for hours on end. But I did meet some quite cool people there, so I didn't mind going because I thought I might be able to cut some dubs off other people. So that was my thinking there. And on that particular time, I think Footsie was there as well, and I had beats from him before, but I don't think I'd met him in person. So I was like, "Oh, you're Footsie." He used to kind of. There was a guy called Corey Johnson who used to kind of be like a middleman between like South and East for like grime, and he used to kind of like. Footsie used to give him dubs to give to like the South DJs. Likewise, I'd give dubs to Corey to give to East guys as well. And so I met Footsie was there, and there's this other guy in there just quiet, minding his own business. And then I went in to cut, and I was cutting a VIP mix of Venom, and the door's like ajar, and this guy's kind of poked his head and he said, "Did you make this tune?" And I said, "Yeah." And he went, "Can you make me a special?" And I was like, "Yeah, all right." And he goes, "Give me your phone." I put my phone, he put his number in it, it was Skepta. But he was really like rude and abrupt, and I was just like, whatever. Left it. A couple of days later, I'm working with my dad, and the phone rings, and I picked it up, and he went, "Yeah, Skepta, you done that tune for me yet?" And I went, "Nah, not yet." And he went, "All right, call me when it's done." I just hung up, and I was like, prick. Like, but I ain't giving him no dubs, whatever. But then I got chatting to his brother more on. I didn't know they were brothers, but I was probably talking to JME on like MSN Messenger around this time, sending beats back and forwards, trying to like figure out if we could do a set together and stuff like that. And then it transpired that he was Skepta's brother, and I was like, "Oh, I met your brother," and he's like, "Oh yeah, he said he met you," like, and I was like, "Oh, I'll send the dub, like, pass this on to him." Like, I then had signed with an agent, Rebecca Prochnik, who was looking after. She was trying to package like a grime crew to like bookers, so she was looking after DJ Cameo as well, but she was also looking after Tinchy Strider, Crazy Titch, J2K, Lady Fury. Can't remember who else. There was a bunch of MCs she was looking after. Bruiser. And she was like, "Would you be interested in doing some grime sets with all these people?" And I was like, "Yeah, like, that'd be amazing." And then around the same time as that all happening, I'm talking to JME, and we're trying to figure out if we can get bookings together. And then this Belgian promoter contacted me directly and was like, "We've got this budget." The budget was like, it's mad saying this now, but the whole budget for the weekend was like, he had this festival called like I think it was like Nuit Sonore or something like that, which is like quite a big festival now, but at the time it was like a small thing in a park in Brussels. And he's like, "We got €800. Can you put like 4 hours worth together for us?" He's like, "We'll put you up, we'll get you over there, like Eurostar, and put you up." And I was like, "All right." So I basically talked for €800. He got me, Mark 1, JSD and Nika D from Virus Syndicate, Jammer, Skepta, Mala, Koki, Logan Sama. And yeah, we split €800 between all of us. Went there on like a weekend. JME was supposed to come as well, but couldn't make it. So when he couldn't make it, that's how Skepta came in. I'd met him a few times before then, but like, we spent time on that weekend, all of us together. It was like lads on tour. It was like we were like little boys. Like, the promoters just like plying us with drinks. They're feeding us. We all got really drunk. We had a good time. We had a day off the day after the gig. We went to like the fun fair. It was like, it was amazing. It was such a funny weekend. And I think that was it. Like, when you travel with someone for the first time, it's different to just like doing a session or something with them. And I realised that me and Skepta were so alike that like, I knew he was going to be my mate. I was like, this guy and me, we're just on a level. Same with Jammer. The two, all of us, like, that weekend just got on so well. Obviously already knew Mark really well. was super tight with him as well. Mala and Koki I knew pretty well through, like, you know, doing bits and bobs at Forward, and yeah, it was just a mad weekend. We had the best time. And then after that, yeah, Skepta and I were just like always in contact, sending beats to each other. If I had a gig, he'd be like, "Can I come with you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, just sit in the car." We'd drive up to Bristol, drive up to Manchester, Leeds. He was just, any gig I had, he was there. Like, and then he started to build a real name for himself. So then it was like I was coming to his bookings. Like, he needed a DJ. It was me. Then there was talk of like, we should start a crew. And that. And Skepta was like, he started being in Roll Deep at the time as well. And JME was like kind of on the periphery, because he wasn't like officially a member of Roll Deep, but he would roll in and out with them. But they was talking of making a crew, and then at one point we were going to call this crew like 100%, and he was talking about it being like me, him, Jamie, Prez T, and I can't remember who else was talking about doing it. But anyway, that kind of fizzled out. And then the Boy Better Know thing come about, I think I guess we were still gigging quite a lot, but my bookings in the sort of dubstep side of things went, like, dubstep really picked up massive, and I was obviously in that Forward booking circuit. I was playing everywhere, more like dubstep leaning. Some places didn't want me to bring an MC with me.
This is like 2006.
Yeah, and around the same time as that happening, that's when Max came back involved a bit more with Skepta, and that he became the Boy Better Know DJ. But obviously I was still like involved on the periphery of all that productions for him, and still doing loads of gigs and that, but Max was predominantly the DJ for them in the end. But yeah, like, I think there was a time around then, I think I probably spent more time with Skepta than any of my friends. Like, he's probably my best mate for a good year or two around then. We were, yeah, I'd travel up to Tottenham and we'd just hang about, try and make beats, and yeah, not always particularly good. Then we just, you know, start drinking, and I had a very similar relationship with him that I had with like my mates who didn't do music, so he was easy to just hang around with. And yeah, if he wanted to come to your gig, you knew it was going to be funny as well. Like, it weren't just, that'll be great, like, come and spit, we'll kill it. It was like, we will get drunk and have a laugh as well. And yeah, we were quite similar in that vein, that we were similar in age. Like, we were born the same year. It's only a month between us. And Jammer similarly was just on the same wavelength of us as well. So then we start getting gigs abroad. Like, I'm taking you, I can get you in this gig in New York. We're going to New York together. First time that they've been out there. Yeah, like, amazing time. It was so funny, and the music that we were all, like, came out at that time was like, still kind of stands up to this day.
Is there any particularly memorable tours or dates?
The New York one's always super memorable. I think the first time they'd been out there, we had like MTV following us around, and yeah, it felt important. We felt important out there for the first time, you know. It was like something big's bubbling up here. I remember Skepta on the flight over there. He went down to go to use the toilet or whatever, and he's come back and he's gassed. He's like proper like a little kid. He's like, someone down there just recognised me. I was like, no, they didn't. We were like, fuck off. Like, no way. And he's like, honestly, trust me, there's a boy and a girl sat down there near the toilet, and they asked me if I was Skepta. And we were like, all right, cool. And like, but that's night and day to where we're at now. I remember him saying things in the car, like him and my mate Aaron were coming back in a car from Bristol. We had a mad one. We stayed there, come back the next day, and we was talking about how, like, who do I need to drop where? How are you getting home? And I was like, can I just drop you at like King's Cross? You can just get to Tottenham from there on the tube. And he's like, I can't get on the train. And me and my mate Aaron were like, you ain't that famous, bruv. Like, you can get on the train. But yeah, it's funny now looking at he always knew. He in his head was like gonna be a superstar. He was like, he had this determination, but he had a belief. Like, I never ever thought, there was never a time in my career where I thought I'm gonna be this, or I'm gonna, even when, like, you know, it became a job, I didn't think it would ever be my job, and then it eventually did become it. But he knew, he had this thing in him, like, he knew in his head he was going to be something special one day, I think. And I'm not surprised that he's done what he's done. He's just got this mad work ethic, and yeah, fair play to him. He's like absolutely killed it. So, but he knew back then, you know, he always had that fire in his belly. He knew something, he had better things to move on to.
Go on, man.
So Intensive Snare come about. There were sort of two steps in that process. The first step, the way the beat got made was weird, because One Extra hit me and DJ Wonder up with a sample pack. I think it was like Richie Vibe V's show at the time. He was like the garage DJ on One Extra, and they set us a challenge of like making a beat with these sounds, and the beat for Intensive Snare was the beat I made for that challenge. So I finished that up, turned it into a beat. The beat instrumental was called like Galvanized. It was on my CDs for like ages when I was playing out. I was playing it out quite a bit. And then I signed a publishing deal at the time with EMI, which gave me access to like a studio with a good engineer. And I was like, sweet, I can start getting vocals recorded and it's not going to cost anyone anything. So I booked 2 days in the studio, and obviously Skepta being like my pal at the time was like, do you want to get in studio for 2 days? Let's just see how many tunes we can bang out. Day one, we get in, he's in there, and we're going through the beats, and I didn't think he would pick that one. It was the last tune I thought he would pick out of all the beats that I had, and he was like, yeah, this one, and he was like, this is a forward one, this is a forward beat, and I'm like, yeah, I'm hearing it, and like we're like mimicking Crazy D over it and stuff, and that's how the like forward comes about. That's Crazy D basically. So he's done that on the intro, and at the time he was writing an album called, what he thought was going to be called More Than Grime. So that's where More Than Grime comes from in that intro, because he was like, yeah, this is for my album, and I was like, gutted. I wanted it for mine. I'm not sure how EMI will be about that, but I think the deal I had was publishing, so it wouldn't have mattered if it was on my album or his. I still would have been fulfilling like something there. But so yeah, More Than Grime was what he thought his album was going to be called. And even them sessions there, the reason that his album, that it didn't end up becoming called Greatest Hits, was because we were joking in the studio, how funny would it be if your first album was called Greatest Hits? Like, you haven't had a single out yet. And that is it, his album Greatest Hits, even though he hadn't had an album out to that point. It's mixtapes and that, singles. But singles on the underground anyway. But it was like, we did that track in one day, and then obviously went on to Rinse that night and played it. And it's mad listening back to think like, that was a lot we did in that day.
Next one, worldwide exclusive, yeah? Wait, no, but play half of it because this is from my album. Alright, listen, this is a worldwide exclusive. Let's go, let's tell them what we've been doing today in the studio. EMI, Old Tight Tony.
And then literally the next day went in and I was saying like, oh, let's invite some more MCs down tomorrow. And he's like, oh, I'm going to invite Slew Dem. And I was like, right, I've never met Slew Dem before, but I know that infamously they're like head cases. I'm like, oh my God, like, he's going to bring Chronic down. I've hearing all these stories about Chronic being this maniac and Temper T, and I'm like, fuck, are these guys going to behave themselves in the studio? Am I going to lose like my deal? But they turn up and they was like super chill. Turn up. About the most like outlandish thing they done was, there was like drinks in, there was like a fridge, and there was like cans of drink in there. It's like, help yourself to the drinks, and there was like big cartons of juice in there and like cans of everything. And I think like Chronic and Temps both picked up a carton and just drinking it like that. Like, I just thought, I don't think the cartons are there to just be drunk out like that. But that was probably the worst thing that they done. But they was like sweet as, they cracked on. We had a laugh with them as well. Like, I'd never met them before, so I didn't know what. And I think back then you always were a bit like, you had to feel like you had to act a certain way to get the respect of people. So like, everyone was always a bit standoffish with each other in the grime world back then, because I think there was obviously ties to like trouble and gangs and stuff, and you didn't know if this person had an issue with one of your friends or vice versa. So whenever you met someone from the grime scene, you were always a bit like, you had to act like you're not going to take shit from them, or they can't mess you about, they can't fucking bore you off or whatever. And that dropped pretty quickly in that session. I thought we were going to spend most of the day kind of walking on eggshells around each other to not like look like, but no, like everyone was pretty chill, and we was laughing and joking, bantering. I don't think it was that session, but around them times when we saw Temps in the booth, the way Temps spat on the mic was like, he's like that, and like I used to talk to Jamie and I was like, he looks like he's got a headache. And that's where the migraine skank term came from. We were like, when Temps is spitting, he's skanking like he's got a migraine. And I did a gig in Stoke with JME, and he recorded a vlog. He used to record vlogs for his MySpace back then. And I think he mentioned, I don't know if it was a video or thing, but he had like pictures, and he coined the phrase migraine skank on his vlog on his MySpace, which was massively popular back then as well. And yeah, off the back of that, obviously Gracious K did a tune called Migraine Skank, but that term was us like basically bantering Temps about the way he was spitting into the mic, like his hands, like, yeah, funny. But yeah, that was Real Things, the second day. And then we recorded some freestyles as well that never came out. I've still got the files for them, so you never know, you might hear bits of it one day.
Why did Intensive Snare not go on Skepta's album?
I wanted it for mine. I was just quite, I think like the processes on the two were going on, and I had probably 70% of mine done. I just wanted a couple of vocal tracks to sort of make it feel like it had some grime on it, proper grime on it. And it was getting on and on and on, and I was like, Skepta, I was like, can we talk about Intensive Snare, like what's going on with your album, how far along is it, what are you thinking, like, because I was like, I think if this goes on my album, it'll probably be like the main song, whereas like, if it goes on yours, it might be a filler. And I was like, we've got like the backing of EMI publishing and stuff here, and you know, we might be able to get some money behind it. It wasn't the case in the end, but you know, I think I sold the idea to him that this will be like a main single off of my album if it comes to that and we get the budget to do videos and stuff like that. So I put some money towards, I paid for a video, like the video that's still online, the Dr. Smooth one. I think that cost me like $800 or something like that. It's pretty good. I think Hood videos around them were probably about the same time, but they looked really bad. So I was quite pleased with that in the end. I thought it was quite different from what people were doing at the time. So yeah, that was it. I think it was just a conversation, just like his was taking a bit longer, mine was pretty much ready if I could get that track on it. So yeah, once he agreed to let me have that was like album done, pretty much. That was like that was it, stamped and signed and sealed then.
That tune for me always feels like quite a big crossover between grime and dubstep, and obviously inspired by Forward. Was you performing with Skepta a lot at Forward?
Yeah, it's funny because like Sarah never used to let MCs on the mic. Crazy D was the only person allowed on the mic for a while. I think like before that, like Juice Man might have been on the mic a bit, but then there was a period where Crazy was the only person that you would hear at Forward, and he'd host the whole night. And then I think as I started to play a bit more, and I think maybe the crowd opened up to a bit more grime as well, like vocal grime being played in the venue. Sarah met Skepta and Jammer, and she knew all those boys anyway. So and I think that like when she saw that they weren't just there, they weren't just turning up to try and spit, because a lot of MCs just don't care about the music they're spitting on. They just want to be heard. Whereas those boys, being like Skepta, Wiley, JME, those guys were in there like vibing off the tunes. They didn't need to go in there and spit. They were happy in the dance, just respecting. So they used to turn up as punters, listen, like hope to hear something. Like if I was playing, they knew they'd hear some of their songs. So eventually it was like, I think Sarah was like, oh no, these guys get it. They've watched Crazy D. They know they can't just come on here and shout the place down. They're gonna have to like pick their moments. And I think even like doing that set on Rinse with Skepta, where he kind of hosted it on his own and jumps in and out, and it's like he'll respect that. That's more true to how Forward runs. It's not Sidewinder. You're not here to get reloads. You're here to, the music is as important as the MC. Whereas you go Sidewinder, your background music for the MC, which was a big part of the reason that I lent heavily into when dubstep was kicking off. I'm like, sweet, I can be the guy. I didn't want to just be pressing buttons for the MC in the background. So being able to do that, and then being able to respect that, it was like we get the best of both. When they start MCing, they're spitting bars, they're getting reloads, they're getting the big reactions, but also they're letting the tunes breathe when they know it's time to let it breathe. And not many MCs are capable of doing that. Like, still to this day, a lot of MCs that aren't experienced in maybe going, nowadays it might be like going to Outlook and seeing how someone like Chunky or Pokes holds the mic and holds the set, and understand, like, yeah, you can go do that. Like P Money was also very good at it because they were into the music. Whereas a lot of grime MCs will come and just like, they're not really into the beat, they're just hearing the tempo and they'll just do what they're doing on a grime set, not completely oblivious that the crowd are kind of getting a bit alienated. So it was, I could understand why Sarah didn't want loads of grime MCs in there, because most of them were only there for themselves, weren't there for like the night or the music that was being played. So that was why they were so precious of like the mic at Forward. That was literally like a drive home from Bristol. Might have even been that same one I was talking about where we were bantering Skepta about getting on a train, but we were coming back from Bristol and I had a tape pack. I think it was like Romeo's birthday bash or something, some random tape that was in my car, and we stuck it on. And the funny thing about that tape was actually Crazy D was on that tape, like hosting a garage set from years back. We were like, is that Crazy D? Then we flipped it over and it was like, I feel like it was Harvey and Romeo or something like that. Can't remember, I think it was Dan the Man DJ, and it was a So Solid tape. And he starts playing Todd, and I was like, do you like Todd Edwards? And he's like, Bo. And I'm like, mate, I love Todd Edwards, like it's so sick. And then we're starting to like sing all the Todd Edwards songs to each other, like just like, yeah, Shut the Door, Never Far From You, As I Am. We're just like reeling them off. And I was like, it'd be sick to like try and do like get a Todd grime tune. I think like, I wonder, like we didn't think he was like contactable or reachable anyway. Like we never thought he would be. He was like Todd the God. Like you don't just like send him an email or something like that. But so we got home was like trying to like cut vocals up in that style. And Skepta managed it pretty quickly, like he got like this neo a cappella and started like cutting it up.
After man's gonna try and drop some organs in it, but man need a vocal sample still. Your head has to be doing this when you busting them tunes. No, we're on a path now. Shut the door.
Going like a barbershop quartet.
Shut the door.
And then started making like a typical kind of like Skepta beat, but like more like a 4 to the floor, a bit like a duppy kind of pattern. And then I started messing about with it, done like my kind of 8-bar pattern. And as we were doing that, JME came home and he's like, we played him what we was doing. He's like, yeah. He ate some food and came in and was like, let me jump in on it. And he jumped in on it, and he's like, JME is different to me as Skepta in that, like, I just think he is like, he's just hardwired, like technology and him are just like, he just got in and just done what I think we were all thinking we needed to do, but he done it quick. Like we've just got like the vocal cut ups and that, and he starts putting chords under it and cutting those up, and we're like, sweet. And now it's starting to sound a bit more like a Todd-esque kind of loop. And we all wrote a 16, and then we structured it, and then I went home, and literally like 2 days later I'm on MSN and JME's sending me all these sketches he's done, near enough finished tracks, and there's like 8 of them, and he's like, I've done like, we were trying to figure out what it was called. We were like, I was like, it's slime. It's like smooth grime. Slime. And we were like, no, that's not it. And he was like, we were trying to, it was like, is it like funky something, funky this, funky that? It was like, and I don't even know who came up with the term tropical, but I feel like it was JME. But he had just like gone in, and he'd made so many beats in like the weekend that he had like a mixtape worth of them. And then I'm not sure why he got Cameo to mix it, but he got Cameo to mix it, and yeah, the rest is history. Like, he smashed a whole mixtape out in the space of about 5 days. Like, yeah, that was just how he works. Like, he just got a bug for it. I think he just caught the vibe perfectly, and like that Holiday tune on that is nuts. Like, if you listen to that, some of the beats that he made on that mixtape are unreal. Like, yeah, he's a talented guy. Like, big up JME. So I was in Ibiza with him. I think we were on a gig together. Like, we were out there together. Maybe was it Ibiza Rocks? It can't have been Ibiza Rocks, because we done Ibiza Rocks together. It's hard to remember, but it would have been 2014, I think it was, wasn't it? And yeah, we were out there anyway together. We must have been gigging together. We were with his crew. He's doing alright for himself at the time. I remember it was like starting to kick off for him around that time. So we're in Ocean Beach, and he's paying for everyone's food. It was like eating a nice meal, getting treated like celebrities over there. And he goes, oh yeah, I done a tune with your beat. I went, what beat? And he was like, the Mike Jones one. I was like, oh, sick. And he was like, when you doing radio? So I had like rinse on like Monday or something like that. I was like tomorrow. And he's like, let's do it. I'll bring it. Radio, we'll play it. So I'm like, sweet, let's do it. And he turned up about 2 minutes from the end of the show. So we squeezed about a minute of it in on the radio. And it was like, I'm like, this is sick. Like, it sounded so good. And then he was like, can you get it on SoundCloud? Like, let's just get it up there now. And I was like, he's like, can you do artwork? And I was like, yeah. I was like, give me like your that like car number plate stencil thing that he was using. So he just banged together that artwork, which was like Georgina Cook's picture of us at Forward and that, and yeah, smashed it up on SoundCloud. And I think at the time it was considered for his album, but I think they were concerned about the sample. But the sample was easily clearable because it's actually a sample from William Tell. It's not lifted off of the Mike Jones record at all. I just re-sampled the same sample that they used, and then replayed all the piano bits and stuff. So like, there's interpolation in there, so it's easier to clear than samples. But I think that they were concerned about samples, so it just stayed on SoundCloud, didn't end up on a project. But yeah, it's still like, it goes off, you know, like play that go to like Texas and play that and stuff like that. The Americans love that one. It goes down really well out there.
That Still Tippin remix was quite big back in the day.
Yeah.
Skepta also vocaled it with JME.
We did that in Germany, yeah. So we were in Berlin, or was it? Yeah, Berlin. We did this gig for Adidas out there at some like skateboarding thing. It was like me, JME, Tinchy, Skepta, and Fury, and we were out there, and the people that were sort of like running that on the sort of music side was a act called Jacuzzi, who's like it's like a female rapper, and she had like a production team with her as well. And she was like, do you want to go studio tomorrow? We've got studio. So we all woke up a bit hungover. If you hear that version, Skepta's voice is like gone. It took him a few times to like, you know, he had like a barking cough and that kind of hangover. But yeah, we recorded a couple of takes and that. Then I took it home and kind of layered it all up with the chorus from the Mike Jones version. And yeah, that was probably floating about on the internet. I don't think there was ever like an official release or anything, but it ended up somehow on like LimeWire and all that kind of stuff. It done the rounds, definitely.
What made you decide to remix that song in particular?
I think around the time that we went New York, There was, I don't know if it was a magazine, but it was a CD that I want to say was like on the front of a magazine or something, that was like all the instrumental versions of a lot of hip hop, like Dirty South kind of like hip hop, trappy, like early trap, I guess, chopped and screwed stuff. And some of it was like of the right tempo to play in a grime set. And so through listening to a lot of that stuff, I started downloading loads of like southern rap, and then I heard like Still Tippin', and I'm like, this sounds like 140. So I started playing the original Still Tippin' instrumental in my DJ sets, and then I was like, I need to put some like grime underneath that. And that was it. It was really easy to just go like rebuild make a drum loop, found out where the sample came from, found a clean lift of that without all of the Mike Jones bits and drums underneath it, and just rebuilt it. And again, that was one of them ones, I didn't know how many people were actually playing that until further down the line. Nowadays with the internet, I'm tagged in, I've heard clips of Dizzy on top of it, I've heard D-Double on it, I've heard, like your channel's probably put a bunch of clips of that beat. And I didn't know half of them existed until like people like yourself started tagging me on things. I'm like, wow, I never heard this. I didn't realise that many DJs were playing it, but obviously it was a staple in that time. I maybe just wasn't listening to enough of the sets at the time.